Next up, I got another angle plate. And it's another one of these types that doesn't really have any way to bolt to it, so to speak. And normally I wouldn't buy another one of these, but I did get this one cheap. And the great thing about it is that it's right here, it's marked, it's a number 193, but this is, let's see if I could find it on here somewhere. Well, it's eluding me at the moment, but I'm pretty sure this is a Taft Pierce. Oh, I remember what it was. There was a piece of paper with this that somebody had marked that it was a Taft Pierce. Let's see if that's what it is, in fact is. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a Taft Pierce Universal Right Angle Plate. See this one, used one on eBay right now for $301.91, because it's in Canada and it's doing a conversion to US dollars. That's why it's a weird price. But they're calling it a they're calling it an 8 by 4.5 by 5. Well, that's not right. Not at all. All right, so what the heck is going on here? All right, I found one that's sold on eBay for 150 bucks. Taft Pierce right angle plate, number 193, 5.5 by 7 by 10. That sounds more like it. 10, 7. That's what it is. This one's not as clean as the one that sold for 150 bucks. Not too bad. Oh, so where it's supposed to say Taft Pierce, it actually does say it. I couldn't see it. It was so faint. So it's really kind of hard to see, but there's the faint outline of where it's stamped right there, that this is in fact a Taft Pierce. So Taft Pierce was originally a manufacturer here in Rhode Island. I don't know why I say here in Rhode Island. I'm in Massachusetts, but right over the line in Rhode Island. Since they've stopped manufacturing there, the Taft Pierce name lives on, but apparently it's now owned by Suburban Tool. The reason why I say that is because you can go to the Suburban Tool website and you can still buy Taft Pierce products, and they are pricey. And then they often sell the same item and under the Suburban Tool name for less money. The item will command more money as a Taft Pierce. So I guess people are still willing to pay a premium for that. And then there are different versions of these angle plates. I believe that they have just plain milled, and then they have ground, and then I think they even have scraped. I think I have some small scraped ones. But anyways, this is a nice big one. I think I might have one very similar to that already, so I'm probably going to end up selling one of these. Also there, I scored this angle plate, and speaking of, this is a Suburban Tool angle plate. So we got a label right there clearly identifying this as a Suburban Tool. So it's interesting, on the label, the way they use the label is they have a part number, which in this case is an 080808, which means that this should be an 8-inch by 8-inch by 8-inch angle plate. And then under serial number, instead of there being a serial number, it just says ground, which indicates that this is a precision ground plate, as opposed to a hand scraped or just a plain milled. It's 8-inch by 8-inch by 8-inch, as it should be. This is actually a really nice size for my mill. So I think, methinks maybe I'm going to keep that one for myself. All right, so this next item didn't pay a lot of money for, because again, the guy was looking to liquidate. This chuck key was actually stuck in here, and the jaws were closed on it, and it turns out that it's just a 3/8 drive fits this chuck key, which is handy. You can use a 3/8 extension, really, if you wanted to. which is good news because this chuck key that was jammed in here is, well, it's seen better days. Looks like it's just a homemade one, judging by the welds there. It looks like it's seen a lot of use, but this is the best part. Look at the end of this thing. It's got a bend and a twist to it. So that makes it kind of interesting to turn. Still works, but anyways. So, can't find a maker's name on this anywhere. It says 609 on the chuck, and it says strong. And then it's got a weird logo and some Chinese or Japanese characters. The Chinese or Japanese alphabet. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, the rest of it actually seems to work fine. It's a little stiff, but it was working. I did check it. Or did I check this? No, you know what? I didn't check this. I'm thinking maybe this is a lock. Let me just make sure it's loose. So with that loose, this should rotate. And if there's a spacer plate in position on this thing, this would be to release the pin from the spacer. So let's see. If I put this in here like this, maybe I can use it to get some leverage. Something's wrong. Looks like there's holes in the side here for like a Tommy bar. I think I'm beginning to see why this chuck key looks the way it does. This chuck has got some issues too. It's jamming. One of the screws will get stuck, so then you gotta turn the other one. And also, I tried tightening down on this so I could put a big wrench on this and try and turn it. That didn't work. But let's see if I can show you what's happening with the chuck key here. See right, the chuck itself. See right there, it's hard to turn. It's hanging up. All right, so I'm going to cover the R&R of that little super spacer in a separate video series. So that brings us to the final item from this pick, which initially the guy didn't want to part with, but luckily ended up being able to get this kind of cool thing here. So he had a large acorn style welding table, or what they call an acorn welding table, which is a very thick slab of metal that has a whole bunch of square holes in it. And those were really popular back in the day, and they're still pretty expensive if you go to buy one. You know, now with the strong hands type of modular welding table systems, they're not as popular as they used to be. But anyways, he thought that the large acorn welding table that he had for sale, that this was part of that. But then I was able to show him that when you drop this into the squares, it actually, the squares on the acorn table were so big that this thing just kind of went all the way down like that, which was pointless. So what I believe this is, I don't know the exact name of this thing, but I believe this is a blacksmith's tool, and that this is supposed to go in the square hole that's found on the top of an anvil. And by the looks of it, probably a pretty good sized anvil. And then what that gave you is that gave you a place to forge or work metal. The fact that it has this unusual side right here with this shape to it makes me wonder whether or not this had something to do with maybe even horseshoeing. I don't know. But I don't remember if they call this a swage or... give me a second to make myself smarter than I already am. I'll take that back. All right, poked around on the internet a little bit here, and this appears to be what's called a stake. And the style, I guess because of the shape of this part right here, is either a blowhorn or a beak horn. I've seen ones that look like this one called both of those names. So I don't know if those are both valid names for this or if some people were mistaken. I'm sure somebody's going to come along and know something about blacksmith and maybe make a comment confirming my suspicions that this is a blowhorn stake. This thing is 28 1/4 inches long, and this shank right here, the square part, is 1.5 inches. So it must go in a pretty large anvil. These things on eBay bring well over $100. And if you can identify the maker, some of the makers, I guess, are pretty prized, because I saw some of these go for like $300. But I haven't been able to find any identification or markings on this thing. I kind of venture to guess that a lot of these were probably never marked. It's possible. Either that, or maybe they had markings on them somewhere that over the years just got beaten or rubbed off from, you know, this thing being worked hard. Anyways, pretty kind of cool looking implement of destruction here. Probably going to end up reselling this, only because, you know, it might be a handy thing to have, but I really don't do any forging work, and it would just be something that's going to hang around here, and it'd be an expensive thing to tie up here in the shop for the occasional times that I need to beat on something on a round surface. Oh, I almost forgot about this neat item that I picked up at that pick where I did a lot of trading. So this actually should have been included in a previous video, and I totally forgot about it. Look at this neat thing. Now, neither the seller or myself had an idea of exactly what this thing was when we both were looking at it. But we both agreed it was kind of a neat looking thing, and he agreed that he had no use for it and therefore would be willing to part with it. And I just thought it was kind of neat, and I wanted to take a chance on it, and I'm glad I did. Turns out what this is, well, as you can see, there's a name on it here. New Hermes. Hermes. I'm assuming that's how you say that, New Hermes. And there's a serial number on here, but the serial number actually says CG42996, I think. But apparently the CG4 is actually the model number of this particular machine. And the kind of a hint as to what this thing is for is actually given here in the little placard right in the center there. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. So you see that says engravograph? Well, it turns out this company makes engraving machines. And what this thing is, this is actually a machine for sharpening the styluses that are used in the engraving machine. So it's a very specialized use. It's got kind of a neat contraption over here. It looks sort of like a Derek's, I think is the name of the company, style drill grinder almost, or an end mill sharpener or something, the way that this thing works. So check this out. You could come in here and you could actually grind. What I was wondering was, I was wondering if you could repurpose this thing to grind or sharpen really small end mills or drill bits. The other thing I was thinking was, I mean, it would be kind of overkill and kind of crazy to do it, but could I use this thing to sharpen my tungstens for my TIG welder? I had been meaning to get myself a decent tungsten grinder, and I'm just looking at this and I'm wondering whether or not that would work. Now, the first issue we'd run into here is that apparently this uses collets. So let's see if I can get this collet out of this thing. So we get just a regular collet closer. So that's what the collet looks like. And if there are no numbers on the collet, then I'm going to have to do some measuring and searching to figure out what size collets this is. This particular one is an 11/64 collet, but the question is, I don't know, 2J or some weird letter, something like that. I guess what I could do is I could see whether or not this thing even works. Sounds a little noisier than I think it probably should. See if I can just pop this belt off. That actually doesn't sound too bad for an old motor. Whatever this uses for a bearing system. Oh, you know what I'm looking at right here? I'm looking at a screw right on the top here. I'm betting that that screw is supposed to be removed and oil should be put in there. I need a better screwdriver than that. Well, I take that back. When I remove this screw, I could see a shaft down in there. And when I rotate the shaft, I can actually see a hole, a through hole that goes through the shaft that lines up perfectly with that hole. And I bet you what that's all about is if we have just the right sized pin to go in there, that gives us a way to lock this from moving so we can tighten and loosen this nut to take the grinding wheel on and off. That's what that's all about. So that has nothing to do with lubrication. So that's not the answer to why we're hearing so much noise out of this thing. Set up there, that's not going to let me take that off easily. Alright, I'm going to leave that alone for now. I'm just curious if there's a regular ball bearing behind there that could just be changed out. But anyways, so I don't know, I'm going to stop messing with this thing right now. But if you guys have any thoughts on whether or not you think this would make a good tungsten carbide grinder, electrode grinder. What did I say? Electrodes. Tungsten electrodes for the TIG welder. So we know that we should have, when we're grinding that point on the tungsten, that our grind lines or marks should run parallel with the shaft of the electrode. So I think that we could get this to work and do that. So then all I would need is I would need collets of the size of the electrode. Oh, so I went online and I looked at some of the other pictures of these, and I was able to find one that had more than one collet for sale with it. Somebody selling one of these with more than one collet. I was able to look at the pictures of the collets and see one of the collets was marked with a 2B. Based on that, I was able to research and find out that 2B is a hard-inch collet size. The problem is 2B collets are rare, apparently. I also found on the Practical Machinist forum, I found the thread where somebody had bought a bunch of 2B collets at auction and was wondering what the heck they were for. And somebody, a couple of people replied and talked about the few instances that 2B collets were used. And somebody also mentioned how hard they are to come by. So it looks like if I actually wanted to use this thing to do what I was thinking of doing, I would have to actually make some collets for it. And I don't know if I really want to get that involved. The other thing I was wondering was, I'm noticing there's a set screw right here. This almost looks like maybe this piece might come out. I'm wondering whether or not this could be converted to some other collet size. I'll tell you. I mean, if this collet right here, that's in here now, being a most likely it's a 2B collet, is probably more valuable or worth more than what I paid for this whole machine. So, anywho, all right. Well, all right. We'll mess with this some other time. So, all right. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, with the COVID-19 and everything going on, the pickings have been a little bit slim, but luckily in the past couple of weeks I did pick up a couple more states, so we'll go through a couple of those, and we've got some other stuff coming up. We've got we got parts on order for the Tower of Power, actually more for the boat than the motor, but once we get all that stuff put together, we'll be back into the Tower of Power series. What else we got? The Earth Dog's coming along, and we'll try and get back to some old projects maybe. Somebody recently found my old series on the SIP drill press, and that's just kind of sitting here in the way, so maybe I ought to get some time devoted to that thing. All right. Take care, guys.